Good evening. The theme of today's reflection is conflicts. I know it's not the most exciting topic, but this is what my prayer led me to speak about after reflecting on the readings of today. Ever since we have been kids, there have been conflicts. Who's mama's favorite? Or fighting for the attention of dad. Arguing to be the first one in the lunch line. That's where the conflicts used to arise, right, class? Who doesn't remember falling in love for first time, those magical feelings, but then experiencing the first breakup? Devastating. Conflicts. Eventually we made it to the workforce. And rather rapidly we learned that not everyone is nice, that there is people who are there to climb up the ladder and they will step on anyone to do so. That's how conflicts arise at the workplace. The gospel of today even speaks of the disciples of Jesus not being immune to this temptation because on the way they were arguing for the first places, who among them was the greatest. And of course, Jesus took care of that internal conflict on the spot with his disciples. Nowadays, there is a whole branch of psychology dedicated to conflict resolution. Not to mention family conflicts, some that are deep-seated, caused by old wounds that were not dealt with, or that were ignored due to fear for the healing process. Sometimes conflicts even rise above us, beyond our reach. Right now, there is no doubt that the political arena these days is quite heated, and that the narratives on both sides continue to escalate to generate more and more conflict. This even puts the very lives of the candidates at risk. I pray for their safety. And modern media doesn't help because it is designed to generate a visceral reaction, instant conflict creation, clickbait we call them, to create more conflict. That's how modern social media has been designed to function. This is a unique modern phenomenon, completely foreign to people decades or centuries ago. As a result of this, families stop talking to each other just because they have different opinions. Seriously. That's the reality. Maybe it's the reality of some of you. Instead of debating ideas, we take things personally, the conflicts arise, and families and friends stop talking to each other. And this is a very sad reality of our times. And to make things even worse, the two active wars that we are aware of, one in Europe, one in the Middle East, they don't seem to come to an end. War is indeed the highest form of conflict. All right. Have I depressed you enough? I don't think I have said anything that you have not already thought of. In a brilliant way today, the second reading describes in a nutshell how conflicts arise from the letter of St. James. He says, where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there is disorder and every foul practice. Where do wars and where do conflicts among you come from? Is it not from your own passions that make war within you? St. James says. The letter of St. James, written in the first century, reminds us that whatever happens in the world always starts small, within the heart of man, as he deals with his own passions. This is an eternal truth that stands the test of time. Our brains were not designed to deal instantly with things that are happening hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from us, that we see behind a screen. Instead, we are designed to live in the moment, to deal with my emotions, with my actions, to the way that I interact with my neighbor right here and right now, Reality for me is not this shapeless mass of people out there in general, but real people with flesh and bones that God has entrusted to my care. Real people with real faces, with real stories, with their lives. And the Lord has entrusted me to take care of them, and the Lord has also entrusted to me to take care of my own heart. And when I speak of me, I'm speaking of we, each and every one of us in our own circles. So that jealousy and ambition should never conquer my heart. So that disorder and foul practices are not part of my everyday life, St. James says. This is how I am called to prevent conflicts and to live Christian values with those around me, right here and right now. The Lord calls us to be the just person, which the first reading of today speaks of, no matter the cost. The Book of Wisdom speaks of the ideal of becoming a just person, a person that is fair, a person that is honest. But the Book of Wisdom doesn't see the world with rose-colored glasses. The author knows very well that the person who is just will be opposed. That person will be put to the test. And in the worst case scenarios, this person will be condemned to a shameful death. A few hundred years later, this is exactly what happened to Jesus on the cross. For the last 2 weeks, we have been hearing in the Gospels that Jesus is predicting his own death. He is talking about the conflict that will end up at Calvary. This is unthinkable for the disciples, especially for some of the apostles of Jesus who were perfect examples of people who have visceral reactions. Think of St. Peter. Notice how Jesus on the cross does not escalate the conflict. Jesus on the cross puts a stop to every conflict. Enough! When Jesus carries the cross, he consoles the women of Jerusalem. When he is questioned by Pontius Pilate, many times he remains silent. Once crucified, he forgave the thief. Once crucified, he gives his mother to John to take good care of her. And his last words from the cross, "It is finished," which can also be translated as "it is fulfilled." It's a form of a speech in which he reveals to us the master plan of the Trinitarian God. Jesus, the Son, is giving the Spirit to the Father. It is fulfilled. Jesus on the cross does not escalate the conflict. Instead, he takes upon his own body all the conflicts of the world, of all time, of all peoples, of every generation, of every nation. And they all die in his own body. And as a reminder of that we don't have to live that way. And on the third day, Jesus gives us life. The conclusion of this weekend's gospel makes it even more real to each and every one of us, because Jesus uses the image of a child. A child always dissolves all conflicts. You remember holding in your hands your first child, your first grandchild, and your heart melting like butter. The image of a child resolves all conflicts. Taking a child, Jesus placed this child in their midst, and putting his arms around the child, he said to them, "Whoever receives one child such as this in my name receives me, and whoever receives me does not receive me, but the one who sent me, the Father." So, brothers and sisters, it is true that there are many conflicts in the world and around us, and many of them are beyond our reach and beyond our control. Many of you have been blessed with children, with grandchildren. Whenever this overwhelming feeling of the conflicts that are around us take the best of you, do what Jesus did. Embrace your kids. Embrace your grandkids. And you will see that the world is just perfect. The world is just fine. Remember the words of Jesus. Whoever receives that child, receives him. Turn the TV off. It's okay to know what's going on for a little bit, but eventually we have to turn the news off. Because our brains were not designed to have thousands of pieces of information, of conflict information, coming to us at once. Our brains were not designed that way. Turn the TV off and experience in that embrace the real people the Lord has entrusted to you. It is in them, it is in children, and with them that you grow in virtue, in generosity, and in selflessness. Because when we truly love and we truly serve the ones that God has put in our way, conflicts become unnecessary. And they even become unthinkable. Because at that moment, in that embrace, with that, your child, all you can give and all you can receive is love. And everything is perfect. May the Lord help us to grow in love for Him and to love those He has entrusted to our care, the real people around us, so that we may put conflicts aside and instead may we be instruments of life, just like Jesus did on that cross and just like Jesus did from His empty tomb on the third day. Amen.